Hello, 8th grade. It's Mrs. Shira, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use an online citation generator to create a bibliography for your research assignment. If you are an in-person student, this is the same skill we had in class, so you can definitely use this video to review what we did. So first, let's look at what an information source or resource is. You'll hear those two terms used interchangeably, source or resource. So it's basically any document that gives us the information that you need for an assignment. It could be books, could be websites, newspaper or magazine articles. If you watch a documentary about a topic to get information, if you find pictures on the internet, if you interview somebody, all of these are sources of information that you would use. But then what does it mean to actually cite our sources? And that just means to quote the source or to give it as a reference. Remember that in order to avoid plagiarism, anytime you use somebody else's work in your own work, you have to indicate where you got that information. So the way we do that is by listing the sources in a bibliography. A bibliography is just that, a list of sources that you used for your assignment. Anytime your teacher asks you for a bibliography, you must include one. And definitely by the time you get to college, you should be including a bibliography, whether your professor asks you for one or not. It's just standard procedure in that situation for you to do that. So what we're going to be doing today specifically is making a bibliography in MLA format or MLA style. Before that, let's just look at what does it actually mean to create a bibliography using a particular style. So if you're creating a bibliography using a particular style, it means that you're putting in all the information about your source in a specific format. The name, the author's name, the title, etc., is in a specific order, and there's certain punctuation that you use. And more than one style of doing this exists. Today, specifically, we're looking at the MLA format or MLA style, but there is more than one. So just like different languages have different rules regarding punctuation, capitalization, etc., different citation styles have different rules about where you put things. There are many different ones. There are actually hundreds of different citation styles. This is just an example of some of them. MLA style is, MLA stands for Modern Language Association, and it's typically used in the humanities. So English, literary studies, anything that's about literature typically would use the MLA style. If you are writing a paper whose topic is education, psychology, or any of the social sciences, you would be using APA, which stands for American Psychological Association. That's just the organization that came up with that citation style so that all the papers that they publish are consistent. So let's say the American Psychological Association is publishing different articles by different authors. They don't want one author to use one type of punctuation or one citation style and a different author to use another one. They want all the authors who publish papers for their organization to use the same citation style. And even though it's the American Psychological Association style, writers in other areas have adopted that particular style. The Chicago or Turabian style is typically used in business, history, or fine arts. The Blue Book style is usually used in writing about law. AP or Associated Press is used for journalism, although some journalistic organizations, for example, the New York Times, has its own style guide. They don't use the Associated Press style. And how do you know which citation style to use? Well, the answer is you ask your teacher. The teacher will typically indicate which citation style you need to use. And if you're not sure, be sure to ask. The reason I use MLA format in this particular assignment that I do with 8th graders is because most high schools use MLA style for their citations when they're student writing. However, once you go to college, depending what field you go into, you may end up needing to use a different one. So just be sure to check. But for the purposes of this assignment, we're going to focus on MLA. So big question, do you need to memorize the format for creating the bibliography? The answer is no, absolutely not. Prior to the development of online citation generators, a lot of students would find it easier to memorize because every citation style has its own guide. It would be a booklet that you could buy. Some of them are on, a lot of them are online now. So anytime, for example, when I was writing a paper as a student, if I hadn't already memorized it, I was like, okay, I'm citing a book for this particular assignment. How do I do that? And I would have to open up the style guide and turn to the page. How do you cite a book? And then I would have to look at the examples there and then make my own citation based on that style. This is the 21st century. You don't need to do that. We have online citation generators, and that's what I'm going to be teaching you how to use today. So there are several different citation generators that you can use online for free. Today we're going to be using one called CiteFast. The only reason I chose that one is because it has fewer ads than some of the others. EasyBib is generally also very good, but they have unless you have a paid account, they have a lot of ads popping up on the screen all the time, and it can just be very visually confusing. CiteFast does have some ads, but fewer, so that's why we're using that one. Okay, so let's get started on actually creating a bibliography in MLA format. I'm on the website citefast.com, and I'm going to be entering my 4 sources in here, and I am using as a sample 4 sources on the same topic. For this assignment this year, you only have to use 4 sources. You can use more if you like. But this year, because of the pandemic situation, I am not requiring that you use print sources. Normally, I require at least 2 print sources and 2 online sources. So print means like it's an actual physical book. But since we don't have access to the library this year, you're not required to use a physical book or a newspaper or magazine article for your assignment. But if you choose to do so, that's quite all right by me. I have 4 sources about a sample topic. A topic that I chose from history is prohibition. Prohibition was the time period in the 1920s when the sale and manufacture of alcoholic beverages in the United States was made illegal for about a decade. So I have found a book. I found a website with information about that. I found an encyclopedia article online, and I found a source in a periodical database. So I'm going to create a bibliography using those 4 sources. So I'm going to start with my book. The book I have is called Bootleg, Murder, Moonshine, and the Lawless Years of Prohibition by Karen Blumenthal. So I'm in, and it's a book here at the St. Athanasius Library. What I'm putting in here first, I went to citefast.com. And I make sure that MLA 8 is chosen. Remember, we're using the MLA format or MLA style, and we're using the 8 because it's the 8th edition, the most recent one. So when I scroll down, I have several options here of what type of resource it is. So the first thing I need to do is decide what resource it is. And book is automatically chosen, and this is a book, so that's perfect. So now I have 2 options. I can either click on manual and manually enter the information for the author, the title, etc. Or I have the option of typing in some information. I can try looking it up by title, by author, or by ISBN. The ISBN is the International Standard Book Number, which is a unique number that is given to every book that is published. You can find it. It's the barcode. When you buy a book from a bookstore, it's the barcode they scan at the checkout. So you're looking at that number. If it's a library book, your library barcode is different. So make sure that what you're entering is the ISBN and not the library barcode if you're using a library book. I'm going to enter in the ISBN for this book, and I'm going to hit, and let me make sure it's correct. Looks good. Now I'm going to hit enter and see whether that book is found. There it is. It is the same book. So now the CiteFast is going to take me back to the manual entry, and I just need to look over it quickly to make sure my information is correct. I have to make sure the information here matches what is on the book. So the author, yes, is Karen Blumenthal. And if any of the information is incorrect, you can go in manually and type it in. The format is print. Yes, this is a physical book that I'm holding in my hand, so that is correct. I am citing the entire book and not just a chapter. The year published is, I'm looking at the copyright page, 2011. And those of you who were here when you were young enough to have story time with me in the library, if you remember, whenever I would read a storybook to you, I would talk to you about the title page. Who's the title? Who's the author? Where's the copyright page? Oh, it's on the back of the title page. Remember when I did that with you guys when you were little, if you were here? Well, now you know why. Because the information you need for the bibliography that you do in 8th grade is found on the title page and the copyright page that I showed you how to find in kindergarten. It all ties together, guys. Okay, so my title is correct. My publisher is correct. I'm not adding an annotation. And now over here, I can click Save Citation. And now it got moved over here. Let me move my mouse arrow over here so you can see. So right here, I have, this has added it to my clipboard. So now I'm going to move on to my next source of information on this topic. I found a website on history.com. I'm going to take the URL up on the top. I'm going to copy and paste it. I'm going to go back to CiteFast. And my next source is a web page. So I'm going to click on web page, enter the URL. I'm going to paste it in here. Search. And there it is. And just like I did with the book, I have to verify that my information is correct. Okay, the author here is not an individual author. It says history.com editors. Let me go back and check. Yep, history.com editors. Oftentimes a website won't tell you who the author is. If that's the case, just make sure you go back and check that there is not a named author on the website. But if there is, you need to include it in the bibliography. The document title is correct. It's Prohibition. The website is history.com. And it says here, I only need to include the publisher's name if it's different from the website's name. In this case, it's the same. It is helpful. You're not required, but it is helpful to include the day you accessed it. So if it doesn't already put that in automatically, it have today, and there's the URL. So here's my citation right here. Save citation. And now it got moved over here.